I'm gonna get really vulnerable in this video in sharing one of the most life-changing, perception-altering experiences of my life. This experience ended up putting me in the hospital, and it took me about 2 years to recover from it. And the experience I'm gonna talk about in this video is the time that I took 100 dry grams of magic mushrooms. The reason why I'm making this video is, number one, it's a very unique story. And number two, it's a little bit cathartic for me because I used to take a lot of these hallucinogens a long time ago. I am now sober. I have been sober for quite some time now. It's been years since this situation happened. From 2019 to 2020 is when it really got bad. I really took it too far. And I want to outline how I got to that point, because it didn't just start off where I was just taking these massive doses. I ended up working my way up to it. In these type of situations, set and setting really matters. I want to start the video by saying I am in no way, shape, or form glorifying the use of any type of drug. As I stated before, I am sober now. I don't even drink alcohol. This video is simply meant to be educational and for entertainment purposes only. Do not, and I repeat, do not even try to emulate anything I'm talking about in this video. I want to describe how dangerous some of these substances are, because I see way too many people loosely talking about it like it's something that you can play around with. There are some serious repercussions to taking these compounds. So let's get into it. At the beginning of 2019, I decided to take 2 grams of mushrooms, and it was because I was feeling a little bit depressed. I had some visual hallucinations. I think I watched Doctor Strange or Labyrinth. I watched one of those movies, and it brought up my serotonin, and I felt a little bit better. So it was a positive experience all around, and there was no hangover after. So I ended up just going about my daily life. Everything was pretty normal for the next 5 or 6 months. And then towards the end of the year, I started developing these depressive symptoms again. I guess I felt the need to go back to taking psychedelics, and I was watching a lot of Joe Rogan at the time, and there was a lot of people talking about psychedelics and how they can help out with your depression and help you with mental health issues. I was reading a lot of Terrence McKenna, and I was watching some of his lectures. I was getting into Alan Watts. I became like a straight up hippie. I was totally lost in the sauce at this point. I was going down the rabbit hole, psychedelics, conspiracy theories. I think at one point I had like a Gaia subscription, because if you actually look into what these guys push out in their videos, it's just a bunch of tinfoil hat nonsense. That's how far gone I was. I went from being completely clean cut to totally losing my mind, and that was from this experience that I'm going to describe. Every weekend I was moving the dose up by a couple of grams, and then one weekend I think I got up to like 15 grams, and at this point I had experienced what they call an ego death. I was walking with a friend, and my friend had taken it with me too, and we were walking up a flight of stairs going to my condo, and when I looked down, it literally looked like there was like a galaxy underneath me. It looked like there was like stars underneath me. It looked like there was like a moon. I could see planets, and I was walking above it. It was like, felt like I was in that Mario Galaxy game, like the way he's like platforming in it. And then I opened the door to my condo, and I had the most terrifying experience overcome me, and it literally felt like my soul had left my body. I did a lot of jujitsu before, and it reminded me a lot of this one time where one of my friends had choked me unconscious, and he had me in what's called a Peruvian necktie. If anybody knows anything about jujitsu, he had my carotid artery blocked, and I think he was still choking me while I was unconscious, and it was the exact same feeling. It felt like I had died, and then I could feel myself leaving my body, like my soul was just sucked out of my body. And then I came back into my body, and it went from like the most terrifying experience to one of the most like euphoric, blissful experiences. So I started developing this like addiction to this feeling and escaping into this realm of like different perception, tapping into a different part of your mind. And I ended up completely immersing myself into this shamanic way of taking psychedelics. I started taking super high dosages. A lot of people say that mushrooms are not addictive. I disagree with that, because I was completely addicted to them, and I was using them all of the time. I ended up stumbling upon a shaman in the US on YouTube talking about how he had taken 30 grams of psilocybin, because he was talking about tapping into these almost like Akashic records, like you were going into into another dimension. He said that he was seeing some kind of like reptilian alien beings messing around with people from another lifetime, people that he knew. And I thought it sounded absolutely crazy. When I tried it, I actually experienced a lot of the exact same things in my trip. I felt like I was like Ant-Man. I shrunk down really small. I had this like hippie organite pyramid. I felt like I was standing in front of it, like I was like in Egypt in front of a pyramid. I started seeing hieroglyphs appear all over my walls. I was seeing like civilizations grow out of the ground in my tiles in my condo. I was starting to get in communication with some kind of otherworldly being. Something was communicating with me. It actually told me it was from the planet Nibiru. At that point, I didn't know what that was. I found out later on that that was the actual planet of, I guess, the Anunnaki. And a lot of these hieroglyphs, they were either Egyptian or they were some kind of, they could have been Mesopotamian, cuneiform. They looked very similar to that and they were appearing all over my walls. So I became completely obsessed with this experience. Then I had another experience where I had upped my dosage to 60 grams of psilocybin. I blacked out and I woke up and I was floating over my body. I could see my body on the ground and I remember myself convulsing and looking up at my soul. I could feel what I was feeling on the ground and I could feel what I was feeling while I was floating on the ceiling. As I was going on these trips, I started having these experiences with these, they were almost like these interdimensional beings. They were made out of light. They looked like they were like purple and green and they were glowing. And they looked almost like some kind of like warrior, like an ancient warrior. I used to see them in my condo. They were conscious of me. I was conscious of them. It's really hard to explain what happens on a trip if you haven't been in this experience. My words can't do it any justice, and a lot of the things that happen don't make any sense and they're hard to explain. They call it synesthesia, where like all of your senses kind of just like blend together. And I had experiences with these specific entities multiple times. So like I would do these trips and like every other trip, these beings would visit me. I would see them. I'm very skeptical. All of this experience made me very skeptical. After the fact, I still have trouble understanding what happened to me, and this completely altered my perception of what reality is. Like I don't view reality like a normal person anymore because of all of this. I started slipping into a psychotic state at this point, and I was telling everybody I knew about what happened because I was excited about it and I was addicted to the experience. I wanted to take it even further, and I started watching this guy Kalindi E. He's like a martial artist. He talks about when you take these high doses, it's all about this kind of like exploration of the astral plane. I wasn't doing it for mental health anymore. I just wanted to push it and see if I could experience any more of these type of otherworldly entities. So I ended up taking this 100-gram dose, and when I took it, I was in my condo and like everything around me melted and I turned into this like, I almost felt like I looked like Malboja from Spawn. Like I had that like look and I grew huge and I thought I was like the king of hell. There was flames all around me. I was seeing all of these like demonic like beings all around me, and I remember looking up at the moon and I saw some kind of demonic wolf-like creature. It almost looked like Fenris from Norse mythology. This lasted for quite some time. I wasn't even afraid of it at this point because I had so many of these experiences that tapping into this alternate reality almost didn't scare me anymore, and it almost felt like that was more reality to me than like my daily life. When you get it to this level, your whole entire reality just melts. Everything melted. Like I said, there was flames everywhere. That ended up changing to like, I was in like some kind of like galactic, it almost felt like I was in some kind of black hole. Like I lived in a condo that faced west and I could see a lot of my area and I could see the full sky and I could see the stars. And I remember at one point I was standing in my kitchen and I felt like it was almost like a vacuum. Like at hyper light speed, I got sucked into the sky. Like I felt myself getting sucked right into like the galaxy, like into the stars. And everything was black. It was like a void. and I was just walking around and I was communicating with something, and it was telling me all of the problems I was having in my life, what I needed to work out. It was telling me I was some kind of special person that needed to send out a message to people. While I was communicating with this entity, I felt almost like I was being possessed. I was not in control of my body. I remember standing upright and literally having my body being moved around by something else. And I remember getting on all fours and thinking I was like a panther. I was walking around and I was just walking through the void. It actually reminded me a lot of like the end of God of War 3 when he beats all of the gods. He finally beats Zeus and he's just walking through that darkness. That's literally what I was experiencing. That lasted for, it felt like forever. I went from like flames to getting shot into a galaxy, and then I blacked out. I kept seeing all these visuals, like shapes. It's kind of similar to when Joe Rogan talks about these jester beings, or these like demonic looking creatures that show up in your psyche. Like I could see them. They were made out of light. They were like purple and green. They were glowing. They look very similar to a lot of the artwork that you see when people do psychedelic artwork. It was like that kind of color scheme. There was one being that I used to see on a lot of my trips. I used to see him in trees. I actually drew a picture of him and I will show it in this video. I started seeing the evolution of man. I started seeing us being transformed from different animals, like evolving and getting to the point where we're like humans. I started seeing myself being reborn. I saw myself being shot down to earth as some other type of being. It looked almost like some kind of alien, and it was like in a capsule and it was coming down to earth. This totally shattered my perception of reality for such a long period of time. When I came out of it, my personality was completely different. I was like a different person. I shaved my head. I shaved all my eyebrows off. I grew like a little goatee. I was very manic. I spent all of my money. My mother ended up having to form me. I ended up in the hospital for 8 days. I had a friend call me the David Goggins of psychedelics. At that point, I technically was. This led me to being a skeptic. This led me to changing the path of my life. I ended up getting sober. I'm not doing any type of drug, but I got in a lot of trouble because of this. I ended up getting arrested a few times. I was locked up in the psych ward. It took a really long time for me to reintegrate into society. I could literally write a book about the experiences I've had. I don't think anybody needs to take psychedelics to feel better. I think it's better to go and see someone and talk about your problems and find out what the root of them is. Taking something like psilocybin into your own hands and playing around with your mental health. If you have any like latent psychological issues, like you're prone to mania or you're prone to schizophrenia, it's gonna make it way worse and you might not come back from the situation. I'm grateful that my mind has come back and I'm still picking up the pieces from it. And this was like 5 years ago. And I can't stress this enough. Do not do anything I said in this video. Don't go out and take a whole bunch of psychedelics. I know some people are just gonna do it if they wanna do it, but in my personal opinion, you can get to a good mind state in life without taking these substances. And I know that I'm saying that as a person who's had this experience, so maybe that sounds a little bit contradictory or hypocritical, but I truly believe that I didn't need to have these experiences to get to where I'm at now. My perception of reality is completely different. I think of things a lot differently than most people. Most people have no idea about this spirit realm. Most people have not seen these type of interdimensional, alien-like, demonic, angelic, whatever you want to call these beings. And if they did, they'd probably be terrified. Me personally, I'm at the point where I understand that this stuff probably exists. I don't know if that's reality or just a projection of a consolidation of my mental state, but at this point, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just living my life in a very sober manner. I don't have these experiences anymore. This channel has helped me with filling the void that I used to fill with drugs and alcohol and all these other things, psychedelics. And I'm happy to be on the straight and narrow. That's all I got for this video. If you or anybody you know have had an experience like this and want to discuss it, leave a message in the comments. If you want to like and subscribe to this video, it helps me reach more people with this message and it helps me with the algorithm. Have a good morning, have a good afternoon, have a good evening. Stay skeptical. See you in the next video. I'm out.